Hey everybody, I'm Scott Allen Miller. Today on Sam IT, we're going to tackle the question of what is a stateless and a stateful system. When we're dealing with systems, we have started talking about stateless and stateful much more in recent years. Traditionally, we used to mix all of our workloads together, and basically when you do that, all of your systems become stateful. But in modern IT, we tend to separate things out pretty well, whether because virtualization has made it easy, or cloud computing has made it easy, or licensing and open source, whatever, but the world has changed and we're able to separate out workloads pretty well these days. And because of that, we're getting the majority of our systems are actually turning into stateless or near stateless, and very few are remaining stateful. And this allows us to look at the world as stateless and stateful and approach them in very different ways. At the highest level, a stateless system is a system that once it's built is done. It doesn't change. We can basically put it into a read-only mode, let nothing touch it, and it will continue to function as it should indefinitely. That doesn't mean that we never update it or something like that. We don't refer to those changes as being stateful, even though technically they are in the most extreme cases. But they're things that are repeatable. We don't need to protect the state of the system. Simply restoring it to any previous state would either immediately get us back to where we should be, or we can easily get back to where we need to be without needing to have stored anything. A stateful system holds important state information that affects us. In most cases, this could be something like a file server or a database, where things that we need to make changes to need to be stored, and we would need to protect those at all times. Stateful systems are generally pretty easy to identify, and databases and file servers represent almost all of them. Now, a lot of times there are things that have databases in the background, and we may not realize it, and that's where we may get caught off guard, that there's a database we forgot was there. So be aware that that is often the case, and we need to be aware of that. But in general, we know when we're storing data in a stateless and stateful system, stateless is just a pass-through. So things that tend to be stateless or nearly stateless would be things like your telephone server, your PBX, your instant messaging server, your web server, things of that nature, your application servers. Things that run code typically are pretty stateless. Things that are stateful are going to be your file server, where you're constantly putting the files that you're working on, and your database servers, where all those other things like your applications are going to store their data. And when we're looking at things like backups and disaster recovery, looking at stateful and stateless is super important in understanding criticality and how we're going to approach those things. Now, how we're going to approach it, we're going to talk about in another video, but we wanted to get the idea across that stateless systems basically don't change other than patching and reboots and things like that. And stateful systems are actually used to store data, and that changes all the time, and so it's very important that we see the fact that their state is what matters. We don't care about the state of an application server. You can reboot it at any time, you can restore it at any time. Stateful, we care about this. The state is actually what matters, what it's storing at that time. Thanks for joining me. Remember to like and subscribe, and as always, ask your questions below and you can sponsor us on Patreon.
Discover how easy and affordable business telephone service can be. Say it with Talkadillo.